This episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast is brought to you by Bluehost. Try the #1 recommended web hosting provider. With plans starting at just $3.95 a month, you'll get a free domain, free site builder, easy one-click WordPress installs, and 24/7 support. But what's just as impressive as what you get is what you don't get, as there's no contracts, no hidden fees, and no gimmicks. Go check them out at lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/Bluehost. You're listening to the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast, the weekly show sharing proven methods and systems in marketing, equipment, and customer service, educational and motivational, to help make your lawn care business an overwhelming success. Now here's your host, Julio Tomei. Welcome, Lawn Care Nation, to another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Julio Tomei, and this is episode number 89, entitled Interview with Brian Fullerton from Brian's Lawn Maintenance. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining me this week on another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I really appreciate it, as always, and this week I have another jam-packed interview episode for you guys with Brian from Brian's Lawn Maintenance. Many of you guys have probably seen Brian on YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel that he started just under a year ago. Actually, I believe on the 7th of March, next week, will be his 1-year anniversary on YouTube, and he's already hitting over 1,500 subscribers in that short time period. And when you watch his videos, you'll know why. They're so professionally done, nicely polished, and he's got some really neat concepts when it comes to doing review videos and just doing things sort of out of the box. For example, a video where he's got basically every type of backpack blower that you as a landscaper might be thinking about purchasing, and he has them all in one video, putting them all together, or doing side-to-side comparisons between Red Max blowers and still BR 700 blower side by side with a pile of leaves. Just creative videos like that. So if you haven't checked out Brian's YouTube, I would suggest that you head on over to YouTube and look up Brian's Lawn Maintenance. And I'm going to play the podcast announcements as per the usual format, and then we'll get into the interview in its entirety uninterrupted right after this, so stay tuned. Hey guys, if you have any questions or comments about the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/contact. And while you're there, why not join my mailing list and get access to a free PDF document of a landscape maintenance contract you can feel free to copy and use in your own business. For you Instagram users out there, be sure to follow me at Lawn Care Business Success. And if you haven't checked out my videos yet, well, what are you waiting for? Be sure to subscribe to the Lawn Care Business Success YouTube channel. Now, I know you guys love listening to audio while you work as much as I do, so I've partnered up with Audible to offer you guys a free 30-day trial and one free audiobook of your choice. There's no long-term commitments, and you can cancel anytime. And get this, even if you cancel during the trial period, you get to keep your free audiobook. It's a great way to try the service and see if Audible is right for you. So why not give it a try? Head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/Audible. Now back to the show. All right, so I'd like to welcome Brian Fullerton from Brian's Lawn Maintenance onto the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing very good. So happy to have you on the show. And I really appreciate you taking the time out to come onto the podcast and to share about your business. So I think we'll just get started. So maybe tell us a bit about yourself and your business.
Cool. Yeah. Well, long story short, like you said, I do run Brian's Lawn Maintenance. That's also the name of our YouTube channel, but that's my business's name in real life, obviously. We've been doing lawn care now. This is actually our 10th season, which is really cool. Truthfully, I'm jacked about that, just based on, you hear all the statistics about business, and how many fail or quit or don't make it to that mark. And, man, it's been a beast the whole 10 years, you know what I mean? But I got started 10 years ago, obviously, when I was 20 years old. And, honestly, there's a huge story there, and I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of it, but it has been a journey for sure, and one that I've thoroughly enjoyed. There's been good days, bad days, but realistically, I mean, from where we're at today, it's a night and day difference from what I was doing 10 years ago, and I love it. Truthfully, you can't write this stuff out and script it out, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So what I gather then from what you're telling me there is that my next question was, is the lawn care business your main income or your side hustle? So it sounds like it's probably your main income then.
Yeah, actually, this is our main income. We've been doing it full time now for 9 years. There's a funny story. I'm a big story guy. I always love hearing how people got started or some of their struggles and their victories, and I love good movies with good stories too, right? So, but yeah, nine years ago, obviously I had just finished my first season and I was doing lawn care part-time, working for True Green, the national fertilizer company. Yeah. And so I basically decided when I was going to do lawn care that I was doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I was working at True Green Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'd cut lawns Thursday, Friday, and I did that for my first season. But then the second season, when I was going to come back to True Green, and this is the Cliff Notes version, at that March, I was going back to my truck, my route. Yeah. And the service manager, that my boss, which was a great guy, and I have a great experience from True Green, but he goes, I didn't know you were coming back. I thought you were doing that lawn care thing full time. And I go, I guess I'm going full time, baby. So that was a busy season, that next 6 weeks, as you can imagine. But yeah, 9 years ago, I walked away from True Green, and when you're making like $4 an hour, it's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. But since then, yes, we've grown our business a lot, and it's been our main source of income. In the winter, I do some stuff with working at a medical supply company, but I haven't really done that in the last year or two, and it was just kind of stay busy, pay the bill money. But realistically, it's been our main source of income for sure.
Okay, awesome. So what first attracted you to the lawn care industry, and what made you want to start your own business? Now, I know you were saying you were working at True Green there, so maybe elaborate more on that. How long were you working at True Green, and what made you think about doing that lawn care stuff on the side?
Sure. Well, the Cliff Notes version, and I think a lot of people share like a very similar experience. The more I've gotten to know so many people through the years, just, in real life, and then also through social media and YouTube, they all kind of started the same way. Like, it seems like a lot of people did it when they were, young, like 10, 12, 15 years old as a kid, right? Yeah. To very typical kid that wanted to make some summer money, didn't really know what to do, so I started cutting my lawn for $10. My mom and dad's lawn, and then I cut the neighbor's lawn, and then you got like your wagon, and mm-hmm. I mean, literally as humble beginnings as you can imagine. Yeah. And so I did that as a kid, and I probably had, truthfully, like 20 lawns when I was like 12 and 13 years old, and wow. You're making $200-$300 a week at that age. I literally remember. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, literally, like, my goal back then was how many fireworks could I buy for July 4th? So you always got to have that motivation. And but literally, like, we would buy like $200 worth of fireworks and crazy fun stuff. But anyway, I also remember being able to like buy Subway. And back then, 10 years ago, Subway was like the restaurant, right? And we had one down the road where, all of us kids could take our bikes. Mm-hmm. And it was just far enough that like my mom would let me go all the way down the road and get Subway, but not far enough to where like, crazy stuff or too far away, right? So like I was buying Subway every day and doing the whole deal, right? And then what happened was I started working, like I got 16, 17 years old, and you grow up and your parents tell you to get a job. You listen to society. They tell you to get a job. I actually ended up working for Little Caesars Corporation. Okay. So the $5 hot and readies, I'm sure a lot of people Yeah, I mean, the breadsticks are awesome, and everybody knows Little Caesars. And again, great company, had a great experience. I was 16, 17 years old, and I was kind of like, okay, I don't even know how it got in me, but I need to have like a more like real job, and truthfully, like I don't know what I was thinking, because I ended up making significantly less working at Little Caesars just as a crew member, making, gosh, back then, $6 an hour.
Okay.
And, and I did that for a little while, and then I became a shift manager, and then I became a co-manager. And eventually I turned 18, got out of high school, and my two career options were go to college. In Michigan, it's automotive. It's very college focused, and it's like, you got to get your degree. You got to go to college. You got to do all that. And truthfully, and I think we were even joking before the podcast started, like, I'm not really a people person, believe it or not. Like, I'm not really an outgoing kind of guy. And some people might even get that confused on YouTube because I'm decent with the camera. Well,
yes.
Back then I was 18, and here's my two prospects. I could take over a Little Caesar franchise. It was a corporate store, but a Little Caesar store, and the base salary was, $32,000 a year.
Yeah.
Or I could go the college route and spend 4 years and I was never really like a very good student either. I was bored like a lot of people, and kind of ADHD, if you will. And I couldn't stay in high school, to be transparent. And then, my prospects of going to college was like, well, dude, I got to go four more years of that and pay to do it. So I was kind of like, dude, I don't know what to do. So naturally, as a lot of young guys would probably imagine, I went and just took the immediate money, and I made, $32,000 a year in bonuses and fun stuff. And how I train, and I know it's kind of lengthy, but the story of how people get started, to me, it's always inspiring. And
yes, it is.
And I love why people, do what they do. And basically, after about 18 months, a lot of things were transitioning to, I was going to become a supervisor, be in charge of like 9 stores in our area. I really liked I liked running my own business. Like, literally, and a lot of people I've heard very similar stories. Like, that store was quote unquote my store. How the P&L worked, how the store was profitable, who I could hire, who I could fire. Yes, it's a business system, but we did have some flexibility with, running the store. And I felt like it was truly my own business. And I think that was really my first experience of, I'm in charge of a $500,000 a year unit. And I learned a lot about numbers. I learned a lot about hiring and firing. I learned a lot about profitability and cutting costs, and, stuff that most guys learn after they start cutting grass, right? So I was kind of like prepared, if you will. And then some things changed with management. And long story short, we just basically split ties. I wanted to do certain things. I wanted to go certain places. It's a very good organization, but it was a very like rigid corporate environment. And they weren't really responsive to some of the implements I wanted to make and where I thought, things could go. And so I basically left there. I went on, just Craigslist or Google, whatever it was back then, and found jobs. And I found a True Green 5 minutes down the road. They were hiring. I knew nothing about fertilizer, nothing about spraying lawns, nothing about anything. I was 19, 20 years old. But again, I worked for True Green for just over a year and a half, 2 seasons. And the stuff I learned from them was, man, like, just invaluable. I mean, a great company. I mean, we learned how to manage routes, and we got bonused off of how productive we were. I learned about upselling, because True Green has a lot of programs even still today where guys are kind of required to make upsells and all that fun stuff. So anyway, the Cliff Notes version was, I was running one of my trucks, a fertilizer truck, and I saw these guys come up in the route I was, and literally they dropped the gate on their truck, and they cut a lawn, and I'm like, filling out the invoice after a lawn I just sprayed, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And these guys cut this lawn in like 10 minutes, right? And I go, dude, they probably just made $20, $25 an hour. I had that entrepreneur bug. I think a lot of people do. I remember cutting grass as a kid, and now here I am. I'm in this tanker truck. Imagine this. I'm in this tanker truck. There's no air conditioning. It's August. It's 100 degrees out. Not like southern heat, but it's still hot. And then because of fertilizer, we're required to wear full-length pants, full-length long-sleeve shirts. I'm wearing a hat. I'm sweating my butt off. And I see these guys run up, and I'm making like, $11 an hour, right? And I see these other guys, they're in shorts, a t-shirt, they're drinking a Gatorade, and it was like a Baywatch commercial, you know what I mean? I was just like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And literally something snapped, man. I don't know what to call it, but I took that entrepreneur bug from working my own franchise, Little Caesars, to I knew I could cut grass. I'm like, dude, I know nothing about nothing back then. Looking back on it, it's a miracle I even, quote unquote, I'm still in business, right?
Yeah.
But I just knew, like, dude, like a lot of guys say, that was my breaking point. Something had to change. Literally, the next like month, I bought a lawnmower. I started doing some stuff, like I said, part-time. The next and we did pretty good. We did some side lawns for a little bit. Then we went into our next season. My boss thought I was coming back, full time, or he thought I was quitting and going full time in the lawn care. I had no intention of that. But that's basically when I went full time my second year in business, if you will. And the first year was kind of like, sort of, you know what I mean? So, but that's not to be, lengthy on that one, but I always like hearing how guys got started. That's still.
I'm exactly the same way.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, every time I meet somebody new who is an entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be lawn care or anything, I'm always fascinated and get into the discussion of, so how did you even fall into that? How did you, because it's fascinating what, what their previous jobs, and it seems to be, the case with most people, it's their experiences in their past jobs that lead to the opportunity that becomes their business.
Sure.
A lot of them would, probably have the exact same, response in saying that, if you asked me, 10 years ago that I'd be selling, these gadgets or doing this service, I'd say you're nuts. Right. Right. So it's not always the, the passion, like the true passion that sort of hits you and you decide to do that. Of course, there's people that do that, and turn their passions into a business. But a lot of times it's, you discover your passion through, going into the business, through these opportunities, and you become passionate about, a certain aspect of it. Like for me, for example, I wouldn't say that I'm passionate about lawn care, but I'm passionate about being a small business and owning my own business and working for myself and having the freedom to do all that. That to me is, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Well, and I used to always say to my, to people too, that, when they would ask me, I would say, I know I want to own my own business, and it almost doesn't matter what it is, as long as I'm in business for myself. Sure.
And I'm cool with that. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, in the like you said, I think you made a good point. Like, I think a lot of people want to own their own business, and back then I was 19, and I always try to preface things with people because context is everything, and if I had a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, would I have made the same decisions? I don't know. People ask you like, what would you do in my scenario? And I'm like, dude, I can't tell you. What I did in my scenario, it was, just jumping off. I didn't put my big toe in. I just jumped in, right? And if I with my personality type, if I would have spent all day looking at all the variables, there's no doubt in my mind I never would have pulled the trigger. But, back then I was living at home. I had like a car payment and insurance maybe, very, very, very minimal things. But I still tell people, like, it's never too late, man. And, if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it now, because one of my jokes with my lawn clients and how we get a lot of customers is I'm like, hey, nobody ever got less busy the older they got, right? And it's true. And people think they have responsibilities now. You're kidding me. Like, wait. And we don't even have kids yet, but I mean, just with, we're, buying a home and we're going to be, having kids soon, and it's like, okay, if we're going to make bigger investments and bigger purchases, let's just do it now. And you know what? Everybody's scenario is different. You know what I mean? So, but I wouldn't trade the last 10 years for the alternative of staying in corporate America, like you were saying, and not being more flexible and having that freedom of being self-employed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And it's, everybody's got, like you said, context is everything. And it drives me nuts when I'll see guys get caught up on buying and I actually saw one of your videos about, tips for buying a commercial mower. And, some things rang so true to me about, you were saying, in that video, how, if you can't afford a thing, everybody's budget's different. Some guy might have a $10,000 budget. Some guy might have a $5,000 budget, and it all depends. And you get, some guys will come into the business. And I think you said in the video, if you have no customers, you got to really look at that when you're starting out and stuff. Don't get caught up about what you see on YouTube and social media that these guys are, buying these brand new expensive mowers and stuff, and I'll see them. And I'm in the transition right now too of having, the business is it's liquid. It's always changing. Over the years, the types of clients that I do, whether it's, by preference or just by, the scenario or the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the circumstances that are happening in my area, my neighborhood, that sort of thing, have been changing. So over the years, the properties for me, at least, have been getting smaller and smaller. So, I've had walker mowers on, I've had other zero turns, a Gravely, and things, and found, that they just weren't right for my business. They were fantastic mowers. Sure. But with a walker, for example, I didn't have enough clients for it when I first bought it, but I got caught up in the fact that this was what everybody was saying was the best mower and things. So I dumped $14,000 at the time on this mower in 2007, and it sat on my trailer for 90% of the time. Oh, wow. And, I used it for 4 years and I sold it, and I still love walker mowers. Yep. It was fantastic when I was using it, but it just wasn't right for me. Right. And right for my area and right for the conditions. And that sort of thing. So I see, it drives me nuts when I see these guys, with no clients or just starting out, and, they're talking about these crazy purchases, or, a couple of guys that are talking, they may have been in business in 1 or 2 years and they're struggling, and they have equipment, but they're talking about upgrading the equipment. Like that's going to change everything. Right. It's not going to change everything. Don't get caught up on what you see, because, that person with that expensive mower may be 16 years old living at home. And it's more and more common. You see, especially on, social media and stuff, these kids that are, getting into it, and, they can afford to buy the stuff because they have no other responsibilities. They have no other bills. Yes. And you have to take that all into context and stuff. So,
and if I can just add, like you see other guys that get into business and maybe they do become successful, which is relative to, but they feel like they had a successful year. Well, you might not know that guy's background or story, like you're saying. He might have been a construction management and managed 10 people, and had $40,000 in the bank, and it was no big deal to drop $25,000 on a new rig. Truthfully, hopefully, maybe to give some people hope, but I did not get started with any of that. Just because I was more prepared with how to maybe manage the back end of the business. I think we were joking before we even started the recording how both of our personality types were not really people. And to even do an interview for both of us like this, it's, I wouldn't say nervous, but it's at the same point you're like reserved, because I think we were joking. My example is, back in speech class in high school, if somebody said, hey, Fullerton, you're up next. Dude, give me the zero. You know what I mean? Let's not waste anybody's time. And that was one of the things that I had to work on big time with my business. And I think now, because I came from so far back, I wanted to really hit that one hard, was learning how to talk on the phone, learn how to get better with people in person, learn how to sell, how to communicate, how to do all those things that a lot of guys, like you said, some people might be great with those personality types. And a lot of YouTubers naturally have the ones that have good channels. In my opinion, they're really good with the camera. I personally do not feel like I'm even good with the camera yet, because I'm still getting over that. I'm still learning, and that's the YouTube side of it. You know what I mean? But when you look at talking with customers and stuff like that, I don't get nervous now. But the first 5, 6, 7 years, it was still kind of a fiasco with talking to people. And same thing with the equipment. We bought a Laser ZX. EFI, the red technology, the biggest, baddest, best mower I could buy from the one I had, right? My brand. And it took me 9 years to get to that point. Could I have bought it sooner and financed it sooner? Sure. Should I? We can always argue that, but if you can, just go out and buy that stuff, man, rock and roll. But that was definitely not my experience and my story. You know what I mean? So I feel you is what I'm saying.
No, that's totally, the case. You start to know a lot of guys will get trapped as well about thinking that they are a success or they are a successful business and stuff, and they get into these purchases and stuff, and you have to really look at the numbers at the end of the year to see, like, did you actually make money, or did you work for $4 an hour when you break it down?
Right. Well, it's funny. I'm sure I'm like ruining your script here with all the questions, because we're all over the place, and I think we're just having such a good time before we even turn the microphone on. We're like, dude, there's half the interview, right? But it's funny too, because where I live in Metro Detroit, there are a lot of guys that decide to go from their corporate environment and some good cash flow and some good income and probably a good family background. And they do go out and buy the $50,000 Ford F-250. They do go out there and they buy 2 brand new zero turns at $10,000 a pop minimum. They do get the trailer, the blow. I mean, before you know it, these guys have an $80,000 rig. Would I have loved to have had that opportunity myself? Of course, I would be, lying if I said otherwise. But for me personally, I've always tried to stay more conservative and manage my cash flow. And like you said, at the end of the day, I see guys that have 2 zero-turn mowers and they both have 125 hours on them, 200 hours on them by the end of a season. And I have a mower that has 450 within a year. And it's like, are you, what game are you trying to play? Maybe they're having a 5-year game plan and it's just a tough, entry for them. But I think the context is everything, man. When people are getting started, I mean, you can't, the whole premise or the whole umbrella of all that is, in my opinion, is still go for it. It's still, you won't regret it. But everybody's got to figure out what makes sense for them. I think that's something that a lot of people play, that compare game, especially nowadays with social media and Instagram and Facebook. It's like you only see the highlight reel, but there's times when I was broke as a joke, and I mean there's times I would have liked to have been broke, because that broke means you're at zero. But I owed people money and we're making payments and we're still broke. And you know what I mean? And I think everybody's just got to figure out what makes sense for them. And truthfully, success for us, I feel like I'm probably the least successful guy. The reason I feel like I can talk about so many experiences, because I feel like, and this isn't playing the humble card. I sincerely believe, like, for the first 7-8 years, all I did was mess up and fail. And we had some successes too, but I feel like it was 3 steps forward. What do they say? 1 step back. And other guys, I'm hoping with our channel and the rest of the community and your podcast, they can learn from our experiences and our failures. And truthfully, that's one of the main reasons I even wanted to get on YouTube, was to give back to hopefully help people with that. And the same thing with that video you were referencing. That was one of my things, like, hey, don't go buy a $12,000 mower because I have one or your friend has one. Figure out what makes sense for you. And maybe
the context again is the whole thing. They'll compare themselves to, it'll be somebody thinking about getting into business, and they'll look at your videos and look at, okay, here's Brian, and he's got this mower and he's got all this Red Max equipment, and look, his YouTube channel's only been up for a year, and he's got it all together, and they don't relate that. Okay, he may be on the scene publicly for a year, but there's 10 years of work building up to the point to get to all this. It's not, I decided to buy start a lawn care company and I'm going to go out and buy all this expensive equipment. And, they don't, like I said, the context of putting, they'll see that top notch. They'll see all these guys and not understand that it didn't happen overnight. Right. Work,
well, right? And people are like, well, why somebody asked me on YouTube, they're like, why didn't you start doing your stuff sooner? Because all your stuff is great. I go, dude, up until about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I didn't even feel comfortable talking about, quote unquote, the success we've had. Because, and truthfully, like, we're for real, no big deal compared to half of the guys that are out there on YouTube and the guy that but I was like, dude, if you would have met me 2 years ago, I feel like we're just in a position now where we've had some successes. And then in the last year, I felt comfortable even dispensing that information. That's one of the things too, where you see some guys dispensing information and you're like, dude, I don't really know the credibility of what you got and what you're doing. It's like your first year or something per se. And like, that also that's also one of those things I'm always pins and needles on, because I don't talk about anything that I don't know, like I've been there, done that.
Yes.
I've put 10 grand on the line or 10 years into that, or
Yeah.
I've failed, or I'm, like talking about a sales phone call, I made 2,000 of them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always nervous about other guys because YouTube and social media is such an environment where anybody can jump on it. I always tell people, like, be cognizant of the information you're digesting, and know that person's context, know that person's life story, and truthfully know their motivation, their reason for even giving the information. You know what I mean?
Yes. I'm similar in that as well. And, I'm sure you've had similar, I've had some emails from people, and, they're always, thank you so much for, what you're doing and the information. It's helped me so much. And, I had one that said, thanks, because of you, I've decided to quit my job and start a lawn care company. And I'm like, whoa.
Oh yeah. Those are the nervous ones.
No. Don't be putting that on me. That's a lot of responsibility. And not that I don't think, my information is good. It's information, like you say, that I only share what has worked for me, but always in the context of, it may not work for you. That doesn't mean it's not good information. It just means everywhere is different. The neighborhoods are different. The, conditions are different. When I bought my franchise, they would give you this territory, and they considered it all equal.
Oh,
and
sure.
And when I went to, I would be working in one area of the city, and it was all, how much does it cost to cut a lawn? And, okay, do you want your hedges done? No. Do you want fertilizer? No. Do you want, just cut the lawn and, as least as possible. Can you do it like once a month? Thing, right? Where other franchises across town were like, doing the hedging, doing fertilizing, power raking, aerating for the same client, right? Or, similar client amount of clients and stuff. And I'd explain it to the, franchise, or about, this is like totally different, right? Like all these guys on this side of town are doing so much work. Where on this, we're kind of, in the beginning struggling because it's, all they want is a mow as least as possible. Do I want fertilizer? Hell no. Cause that means I would have to cut it more often.
Sure. Sure. Well,
so the context is different because what I do works for me. It's good information, but you have to use your brain, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And use that into context of, okay, but is this going to work for, for other guys? When I say a walker mower doesn't work for me, even though I love them, it's because we get so much rain here. And the ground is always soft. Even, a month after it stops raining, there's areas that it's still soft. And for me, it kept getting stuck. It was too heavy.
Sure.
And because of the low ground clearance with the fantastic GHS blower and all that stuff, it would get caught up and stuck. But you take that mower to Texas or to Arizona or California, it's going to be fantastic because it's not dealing with the same conditions.
Absolutely. And I think maybe what some of the people listening to this can understand is, and we're all susceptible to it no matter how much we say we're not, but it's the compare game. And, when I got started, everything was literally like Craftsman, Sears, Home Depot. If I had stuff from Home Depot, it's like I was big time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And around where I live, it's you play like that compare game. Like, oh my God, look at that guy's truck and his trailers and his mowers. And what you don't know on the back end is maybe, and I'm not trying to put that down, but what you don't know on the back end is that, hey, that guy, his life might stink in the background, and you don't know that. His finance might stink, and you don't want any part of that. And you guys are like, oh, this guy's got the coolest, newest mower, or your YouTuber friend upgrades something. Spoiler alert, like I'm looking to upgrade it into a new trailer, and I'm 99% sure I'm going to pull the trigger on that. But that took me 10 years, and somebody might see that on YouTube and go, oh my God, look at the success he's having. I'm like, dude, it took me 10 years. Now, it could have took me 2 if I was, if I had access to everything that these young guys have access to, which is a whole nother topic now on YouTube, guys putting out great info. But back 10 years ago, we didn't have YouTube necessarily. I was, back then 10 years ago, it was Charlie Bit My Finger, on YouTube, and like the funny, it wasn't what it is today, and back then it was like, do you go talk to your competition? Of course not, because they're going to tell you politely, go away. So it was a lot of failing, and I think people are in such a better position now to learn from other people's successes and failures. And I think that's really one of the things too that I'm admiring about the lawn care community on YouTube, is how friendly a majority of people are, because I can network with a guy on YouTube who lives, like you said, in Arizona, in Florida, in Savannah, Georgia,
in Canada.
In Canada. I think they have grass there. It's all snow, right? Polar bears. But you can learn from what those people are doing. Here's a funny thing I heard a guy say once. Like, if in school, if you work with somebody, it's called cheating. But if you in business, it's called collaborating. It's called partnership. Yeah. And you're just drilled as a kid that you shouldn't be looking over your shoulder at what the other guy is doing. Yeah. And yes, in real life, and the guy that's down the road from you, quote unquote, as your competition, you can't really ask him for help. But you come to a channel like all the other guys that have big channels on YouTube, and you go to their stuff. Even though they run a business, they're 900 miles away. They're not competition. And I think, oh my God, like if I would have had access to all this stuff, I would have been able to do what I've done in 10 years in 3 or 4, Yes. And I think that's just, it blows my mind still. Like you said, people that watch our channel, I mean, I think we have like 7 daily visitors. We're kind of, we're not big time by any means. It's been a journey. We're having fun, but, I that's one of the things I really want to do, is maybe give back to people and help them out with things I know what I'm talking about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I'm pretty similar in that sort of train of thought. I remember having to pick up my kids one day, and I still needed to go to a garden center. So I picked them up after school, and I went to the garden center. We pulled in, and this, and I'm in my truck, and it's all clean with my trailers, all clean, and sort of that professional image. And another gardening truck pulls up beside me. Same thing. Nice professional image. And my daughter goes, "Hey Dad, there's your competition." And I looked at the truck and then I looked at her and I said, "I don't have any competition. My only competition is myself."
There you go.
I'm the one who I'm up against.
Absolutely.
Right? It's the games in your head. It's the things like that. You can accomplish anything you want. Don't be afraid or scared of everybody else doing the same thing as you are.
Absolutely. Well said. Because, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. So let me see here. The next question sort of is along these lines, and actually it's not the next question in the list, but I'm going to jump to it because it sort of fits.
Sure.
So how would you define success?
That's a really good question. Everybody has that's a different answer for everybody, right? I've listened to a lot. And that's why
I like asking.
That's right down the middle, man. I'm not even a baseball guy, but I know you don't swing at the first one, right? Success is different for everybody. I think what success for me 10 years ago, starting off, has evolved to what success is for me today, right? Back then it was like a lot of people, right? You want to prove the naysayers wrong. Of course you want to make more money. Of course you want to, you do want to buy nicer equipment and better equipment and all that fun stuff. Now, to me, where my life is at 30 years old, it's I just got married 2.5 years ago. All those different things now, with buying a nice, can we buy a home right now? Sure. But we want to buy a really nice home. And do we want new equipment and trucks? Sure. But do we want really nice stuff now? So our priorities have changed to where, with the business itself, we want to be able to have that as an asset, as a business, without me necessarily needing to physically be involved in it. So that's what, that's the 10-year plan, right? A lot of guys want to get into that position. Well, over the last year, we've been transitioning all of our programs, all of our systems, getting me, Brian Fullerton, out of that business to where, we run 2 or 3 other businesses from our house. We want to have this one be just an asset that I can manage and maintain, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at right now with that. But success for me, I think, ever since my second year in business, I've always had the flexibility. I've always had the time to do what I needed to do. But I also argue too that if you're still involved in the business, you still only have a certain level of freedom, if that makes sense. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes, because everybody's like, hey, what's success like to you? And it's like the freedom part. And I'm like, well, if you still have to work your business 40 hours a week, you're still obligated to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And people are like, well, I fired my boss. I'm like, well, when they left their corporate job. And I'm like, well, I get that too. But you also have 150 clients that have your phone number. So instead of, I think a lot of people kind of, based on my experience and how long I've been doing this, they transition from one boss to 100 bosses. And I think a lot of people, the first phase of my business, that entrepreneurship, that independence, by all means. But my goal is to take it to the next level and have that asset, that walk away. A lot of people who listen to podcasts probably know of like Robert Kiyosaki and, different guys like that. And I've listened to everybody and love everybody like that. So my goal is to kind of get away from the business. I'm not like totally out of it. I can manage the back end. I can manage the people. But if it's making me a 6-figure income or something, as a passive income asset, and we can go do more things, whether it's more leisure things or start more businesses, I'm one of those guys, man. I don't sit still. You know what I mean? So, I don't think I'm going to go to the Hawaii or something like that and just retire. It's an opportunity for us to maybe grow the lawn business more, but in a different capacity. Maybe start a second route. And I think a lot of guys start that second route a little too early sometimes, before tapping out that first one. That's a whole nother topic, if you will, but. But where we're at right now, like physically, I don't think, other than adding another employee or two, could we really make more per our first route. But that's what I wanted to do. That's, like I said, everybody's different, and I'm really enjoying that. So success for me is having more time, more flexibility. The income is there, but now I want to get my time back more. And like I said, we have the flexibility, having a day off, and we can move work ahead, pull work forward. I don't know what I'm really complaining about, because we take 4 months off for winter. But I still want to have a little bit more time during the summer to enjoy those beautiful Michigan summer days, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. And I'll have to tell you, as you were talking there, the words that were coming out of your mouth were hitting me like a ton of bricks. And I say this because I am one of those that say freedom is my number one reason for my business. And I love the freedom.
Sure.
And as you talked there, I went, huh.
Sure. And I know a lot of guys are in that boat.
This guy's making some sense here. He just said, and I totally related in that one instant where you said, did you just go from having one boss to 100 bosses? And I started thinking, am I a slave to my business? Disguised as freedom? Because the minute I stop working, the minute I stop getting paid.
This is true. Yeah. And that's a realization I had even 3 years ago. I heard somebody say, even if they're golden handcuffs, they're still handcuffs. And
another one.
and then, dude, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, the sage, right? Because because I didn't make any of this stuff up. But I heard another guy talk about like the spider monkey, and the some like little monkey, right? But it's they dig out a gourd or whatever it is, and then they make 2 little holes on the inside, and then they put a nut on the inside. And you can't capture these like spider monkeys because they're so elusive and they're squirrely, right? But if you put a trap with the nut inside the gourd, and the monkey puts its hands inside the gourd and then grabs on the nut, it makes a fist. He can't pull his hand out. And they said, how do you capture a spider monkey? Well, you just bait him like that. Yeah. And I'm sorry if these analogies make you frustrated, because they do for me. But I was either going to say this is going to be a really good interview, or for some reason there's technical difficulties, right? But here's the deal. That's me being in business for 10 years and realizing certain things. I don't think there's anything wrong with that initial phase and batch of, like you said, passion and excitement and energy and yada, yada, yada. Yeah. That's what drove me for the first 6 or 7 years. Now, I'm in a position where I want to give back. I want to kind of help people. I want to do more things. 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I just needed to pay the bills. Yes. I was like I said, I would have loved to have been broke because that would have been even, Now, and we're not, wealthy or rock stars by any means, we're very simple people, my wife and I, but we want to get to the next level. We want to have multiple streams of income, multiple businesses. And so there's nothing, everybody's different. Like I said, context is everything. And one of the things I see from a lot of guys on YouTube is like they're still in that first batch. They're still in that first phase of their business. And you know what? That's so cool. I hope, a lot of the guys that start their YouTube business and all that fun stuff, that's where they're at. I'm like, I'm just a little bit further down the road where I'm like, hey, I've been there, done that. I can totally relate. That's why I'm now giving back and dispensing that advice. But the guys I'm listening to and the guys I'm working from, they have that passive income and they've made that transition. And I'm like in that mode right now over the next year or two to do the same thing, if that makes any sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And like what you said, like, for me saying that it hit me like a ton of bricks. Now that's not to say, it's something, that I'll change, like wanting to, keep the business or get employees. Cause that's the big thing for me is I've never been into being or wanting employees and stuff like that.
I can totally relate.
And with you saying that, and like before the show, we were talking and I told you how, I was totally actually against having guest interviews because I thought it would take away my freedom and having to now, deal with somebody else's schedule and lining all that up and, being introverted and stuff. But then once I did the first one, I totally fell in love with it. And I actually think to myself, I haven't actually told this person, he's the first person I interviewed was Connolly Ibsen. And I kind of joked to myself that he broke the podcast because it was such a positive experience that I don't want to do, sort of the single episodes anymore. I will have to at some point because I'm assuming once the season gets underway, it's going to be very difficult to get people to be able to give up time and stuff to do the interviews. So I'll probably have to go back to that. But I always joke that he broke the, what I thought I wanted. Because he made it such a good experience. And everybody since then has also made it such a great experience. So, just what you said just made me think, is that what I'm dealing with here? Is, my thoughts on employees and stuff sort of unfounded? And would taking that leap take me to that next step of even more freedom eventually down the road?
Well, that's something that everybody, like you said, they have to evaluate. And there's nothing wrong with making a strong income with your business and working it 7, 8 months, 9 months a year. And whether you do snow or don't do snow. And I know everybody, different regions have different things, right? But you can have a really good, I think really truthfully, like lawn care provides a pretty good lifestyle and a work-life balance. I really do. But the thing that maybe I wish, I just got done reading a book. A lot of people probably know it, and I didn't make any of this stuff up, but it's the 10X Rule. Great book, and he even kind of says the same thing. Like, if I could do it all again, everybody always says the same answers, right? Like different equipment, get bigger faster, don't go so big so soon. All those are good, but if I could have told my younger self what I would do different is begin with the end in mind of what I wanted to do with a 5-year or a 10-year idea of this business. And again, I didn't have any coaching, any mentorship. I figured this stuff all out on my own. I had to. But if I was getting my business started again, is the end goal for me to get out of my business in 5 years? Is my end game in 10 years to sell my business for $150,000 to that big guy in town? The same thing, like you said. That's where I'm at right now, where the investments we're making are to provide the opportunity for me to pull out of my business. If I don't make those investments, we won't be able to. So do I want to? Absolutely not. But does it get me to where I want to go? Yes. And that's the thing where, just like you said with employees, do I want to hire employees and deal with all that mess? No. But do I want my business to run itself, me manage it from a cell phone, and do a little bit here and there? Yes. You know what I mean? So that's where the things we're buying, the things we're investing and all that other stuff, I'm like, oh, do I want to? No, but do I want my financial independence that much more? Absolutely. And that's, and again, everybody's in different stages and different phases of their life and their business. And you just got to, like you said, you got to do what makes sense for you, man. And I think people listening to the podcast, Try to have that game plan. Try to have that idea. Do you want it be one of your 20 businesses you're going to own by the time you're 40 and 50 and you want to retire young and early and wealthy? Is it one of those things where you're just doing it to supplement your income while you're in high school and college? You know what I mean? And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. Again, you just got to make sure you're doing what makes sense for you and not get caught up in the game where you're somewhere where you are 5 years from now, either at chance, happenstance, or you've been building the wrong idea or business, and you're like, well, dude, how did I even get here? And you literally just, you're like, I don't even want to do it anymore. If that makes any sense. No,
that's, I would say that's like the nugget of gold moment for this podcast here is what you just said, because, if you don't, and I would say probably 80 to 90% of single, owner operator lawn care businesses do this. They buy equipment, they put out flyers, they get customers, and they have no plan. And they go by chance. And in 5 years, 10 years, they end up in a place and they don't know how they got there. And it may not be where they want it to be, but they made no plan. And what you said, that nugget of gold is work backwards. Yes. Think of where you want to be and now figure out the steps it's going to take to get you there. Because then, it may not go according to plan exactly down the road, but at least you'll be able to recognize moments that are taking you astray from that. And you can adjust the course and go, okay, this is not, where I want to end up. Right. So, I got to start doing something this. I got to turn away work like that because it's not getting me to, what I want to do over here.
One of the things that what it helps me do is it helps you filter all your decisions through that end game, through that goal, and that's why I don't have certain vehicles. That's why I don't have certain equipment yet or not at all. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I wanted to do too was another video coming up on our channel was how to set goals. And I think a lot of guys, right now are posting out their videos on YouTube, for example. I want to get 100 new customers this year, or 50 new customers, or I'm going to pass out flyers until I'm blue in the face. And I get that, but from my experience, again, looking, and you know what, there's nothing wrong with that enthusiasm, but the filter is why? Why do you want 100 new customers? Do you know what you even need to do to get that? Like, do you even need 100 new customers? If a customer is $25 a week and you got 100 of them, it's $2,500 a week times 26 weeks, you're looking at 60 grand, whatever it is. Okay, you add that to your business. Well, let's say you wanted to buy a private jet. Like, that game plan doesn't even make sense. Like, and then, I heard our guy say, don't do, people say like, do what you love and all that other fun stuff. And those are good statements, but they're still misleading in my opinion, because what I heard is figure out how you want to live and then work backwards. People are like, well, I want to live a jet setting rock star lifestyle. And then they go to be an engineer. And I'm like, I don't know about where you guys live, but here in Metro Detroit, engineers make about 60, 70, 80 grand a year. It's good, but that's not going to get them to that goal. And you got to do the same thing with lawn care. Okay, I want to make a 6-figure income, work about 35, 40 hours a week in summertime. I want 4 months off for the winter. Okay, well, I could help you do that. That's real. That's tangible to me, But a lot of guys, they don't. They, like you said, they start on the back end and they're like, well, I just want to grow. You know what? My game plan this year actually is not to grow. My approach this year is completely, I hate to use words like surgical and strategic and, but I'm like Ginsu knife right now. I know, like, I'm doing the sniper rifle right now. When I got started, I was the 50 cal, just blazing down trees, and there's nothing wrong with either one. What I wish I would have did maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, if not from the beginning, was transition that thought process of where I'm trying to go. Does that make some sense?
No, that's totally, like I say, it's the nuggets of gold for anybody.
I'm sure we'll both be realistic to this one, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. Some people I'll ask to come on the show, and a lot of the common theme is, I don't know what I'm going to share. I don't have, anything that I think I can share, right? And like I always tell people, it's everybody's circumstances are different. Not everybody, some of the big YouTubers and stuff that you see started out with nothing, and, they, had to do it to survive. They, grasped at straws. They did whatever they could to get by and think, but that's not everybody. And not everybody is going to relate in that's why I love these, sort of the format that this has taken on, this life of its own, that these interviews have taken on, of just sort of, having some questions to guide conversation, but then letting the natural conversation flow, because that's where these nuggets are coming out of. And what you think a person may not have to share, they'll say something and it's like, a phrase that John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire will always say, boom, shake the room. You just dropped the, biggest nugget there, right? So that's why I love this stuff, because what may not seem as a lesson to you, like every moment doesn't have to be this predefined, curriculum lesson that we're talking about on the podcast, because people are going to pull out things that are life-changing out of a simple phrase that you say, through a natural conversation that you may not even think of, but it's something, a lesson or something that you've come across that will tremendously help somebody, or give them just a moment to think. Like, with me now, I'm thinking, okay, am I actually doing this right? Like, am I, do I have 100 bosses? And I, thinking I'm all, Mr. Freedom here. And, so you just, you give a lot to think of, and things for people to evaluate.
Yeah. I mean, I think you made a good point. Like, one thing that I've always tried to do, and by all means, we were joking before we even started the camera or the microphone up, because I'm like, look, dude, like, nothing I'm saying is stuff that I made up, I'm just like a conduit, like, people, laugh at like things like listening to podcasts or Robert Kiyosaki or your pastor or, just, educational stuff. And my attitude is, you can always be a student from anybody and everybody. And I think the minute you stop adopting that attitude of let alone being humble, but still wanting to learn, especially, I'll be the first one to admit it, as a guy and, a man, and being ego driven like we all are. I'm running into that right now with YouTube. I'm like, dude, I know nothing about cameras and video equipment and this. I mean, I got experience with the business, but for me to pretend like I'm an authority in somewhere else, I don't. I mean, I bother probably more than anybody, all the other top YouTube people as an example, because I want to know what they know. I want, if I'm going to do something, I want to be, good at it. I want to be effective, but I'm always a student at these kind of things. And again, I'm not trying to be overly humble, but there's some things in my life I might be an 8 or a 9 out of 10, but I know many things I'm not. And talking to people is one of those things I'm always getting better at. Learning certain things, like, like as an example, if somebody said, hey, you want to go play pickup basketball? I'd probably say no, because I know my basketball skill set is probably a -1. And you know what I mean? And I like to operate in things that I know I'm good at, or I have an advantage in. And same thing with YouTube. Like, I'm all about being a student and learning from people, It's a funny story. I was actually at bookstore Barnes & Noble. I don't know if you guys have them in Canada. And I was in the business section, and the guy's like, and I went up to a guy, I go, hey, any good reads lately? And he like kind of looks at me, and he goes, actually, I'm just like looking at these books. He's like, can you believe people actually read these? And it's in the self-help section. And he goes, do you read these? I go, actually, I was kind of like meek. I was like, actually, I've probably read about 400 or 500 of these books. And he goes, what do people doing in the self-help section? And I had like a moment of boldness, and I was like, they're helping themselves. Like, what do you think they're doing, dude? And for people to admit that they don't know it all, and you can always still be a student and learn and read books and podcasts, whether it's YouTube and some of the big guys, which I think is awesome, but your Kiyosaki's, your Gary V's, your Darren Hardy's, and your Tony Robbins, and your Les Browns, I mean, everybody, and I think this is such a cool resource, these podcasts that you're doing, and I'm excited, honestly. Like before 2 weeks ago, truthfully, I didn't even know this existed, but now I guarantee you every Wednesday, or I think these come out, I'm going to be looking to stream it because I want to hear what other guys are doing, and like you said, get not necessarily the X's and O's, but the attitude, the mentality. Like, dude, when you were so broke you couldn't pay attention, what did you do to make it? What did you do when certain things were going on? And so I mean, honestly, I'm sure a lot of your listeners already know and appreciate what you're doing. But I mean, by all means, thanks for even putting these together. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, thanks very much for those kind words. And it's Tuesday mornings.
Tuesday. All right, everybody, Tuesday.
just for the record. No, that's awesome. I think a lot of like-minded people, entrepreneurs, things are in that same boat. They're just ferocious for knowledge, and it's funny because I've talked to a bunch of them, and you seem sort of the same path, like when you were talking about your, going to school and, go back to school after for 4 years and stuff like that, like good luck, right? Sort of thing. I was exactly the same, like, no, good luck, right? Yes. There's no way, it's funny for me to think that I have a podcast that I talk, for hours at a time, sometimes on the microphone, that I have a blog, that I've written things that people ask in my family will come to me and ask me for advice on how to sculpt a sentence or something if they're writing sort of an official letter or something. Oh, sure. And I laugh at that because I failed English in high school, and it's funny because it's like, it's not because I didn't know how to speak English. Right. I probably knew more than, 3/4 of the kids in that class the vocabulary because of the books that I read. And it's because it didn't interest me. It was below what I was already at, I thought. Not to say that I'm like some genius or anything. No, I know where you're coming from. I absolutely. If it interests you, I can be, reading books and books and books on, how to code HTML and do stuff that people would be like, that is like, the driest subject I've ever, heard of. But, but then you do some other subject that they're teaching in school and I'm like, oh, good Lord. Oh, yeah. Well, I think I failed English because I didn't want to do a book report on where the red fern grows, which I don't know why we're reading that book as a high schooler. When I was growing up, I heard a guy say, like, you're going to be the two things you think about most when you grow up. And I'm like, great, I'm either going to be a girl or a beer. Like this is horrible. This is the worst advice I've ever heard. And but yeah, and the same thing with hilarious.
Same thing with reading books. You know what I mean? Like I never would have thought. I mean, honestly, I was that guy. I never read a single book, and then I read, a very popular book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I go, like, I got like violent. Like nobody had ever told me about this stuff, and I don't think people were like deliberately hiding it from me. They just didn't know. I was a young punk kid, just squirrely and couldn't sit still, learning from employees and government employees, and I'm not opposed to any of that. It's just they didn't know what they didn't know. And then, you get out in business and you're like, oh my God, it's this exciting adventure. One of my friends calls it a roller coaster. He's like, look, roller coasters, they go up, they go down, they go left, they go right. Some of them have loops. He goes, but the only people that get hurt on roller coasters are those that try to get off it. And I'm like, that's a really good analogy for business.
That is an awesome analogy. Yeah. No, like I say, I see that pattern amongst the entrepreneurs, these lawn care guys and stuff, that they have this ferocious appetite for learning. So it's, a great, as somebody who's asking, why somebody's in the self-help section looking at business books is, they just don't get it. Yeah. I always reference this, through the podcast and stuff. This, it's actually a video I found on YouTube. It's about 2 hours long, and it's a seminar that Jim Rohn did back in 1981. And I don't even remember what it's called, but I know if you type in YouTube Jim Rohn seminar full in like 1981, it'll pop up, and it's 2 hours long. Sure. And I've actually stripped the audio off of it and made it into an MP3. And I listened to that thing like continuously from, I'll finish listening to it and hit play again and listen to it over. And every time I listen to it, and I've literally have listened to this thing at least 75 times already. Oh, sure. And And I keep learning something new every time I listen to it, and I make my kids listen to it.
Well, yeah.
Listen to it, right? And it's funny, we have a little vacation property in Washington State. So it's about an hour drive or so from our house to cross the border, go into the US, go to this place. So in the summer, I sort of make it their homework because they're stuck in the car with me. And I'll play it in the car throughout the summer. And say, you know, you have to listen to this. And then at the end of summer, I'm going to ask you questions. Yes. And I want you to think. So I would say for people, maybe if you're not, into reading and stuff like that, because that can be difficult for guys to focus and stuff as well. It's a good thing to get started and just sort of get a taste of this sort of thing, is to look up that video on YouTube for Jim Rohn, 1981 full seminar. It's 2 hours long. It'll pop up. You'll see it as long as it's 2 hours long. Sure. And it's just nuggets of gold, like every second for the whole 2 hours. Sure.
I'm definitely going to check it out after, probably later today, or when I'm at the gym, or, if I'm not, we're not cutting grass for another few weeks, but and that's, first off, it's probably a 90% chance I've listened to it because I love Jim Rohn stuff. I mean, I know he does a lot with like network marketing and, all that. And I'm a big fan, of those businesses, but, at the same point, like, I love listening to these guys that do all these kind of stuff that, like you said, 20, 30 years ago. I think for your listeners and from me personally, I think the takeaway for me from all that was I didn't even know that was something I should probably even be doing. A lot of guys are like, oh, I don't need motivation, or I don't need the, one thing for me for sure is maybe overanalyzing some situations. I know I'm a big victim of that. Not a victim, but sometimes I what do you call it? Analysis paralysis. There's times where I probably should have pulled the trigger on things sooner, quicker. But I'm a detail guy. I like looking at my numbers, and the numbers speak to me. But I didn't even know, like you were saying, that 10 years ago I should be educating myself about business. I mean, if you run a business, it's not just cutting grass. There's a lot of topics. I mean, there's a lot of hats you wear. Do you need to be an expert in all of them? No, but just like Robert Kiyosaki says, you better be aware of how things work. You better be aware of banking. You better be aware of how to sell. You better be aware of taxes and operational procedures. And that all sounds really big and really magnanimous and really fancy. It's all really simple stuff. So if you are having like areas of weakness, like, hey, I've got cash flow problems. There are books, that you can take, 2 hours, read 15 minutes a night and read 4 or 5 books on that topic and become more aware, and your income will probably change. Same thing with selling and stuff like that. There's good sales books. I mean, I could totally be a proponent of all that kind of stuff. And I think, as a 25-year-old chiseled guy coming into this profession or any other profession, most guys are like, well, I already I don't like reading or listening to other things and other people. Or number two, which is also funny because I have a lot of college friends, obviously, where I live, and they come out of Michigan State and U of M, and they're like, well, I'm not doing any more books. I'm not doing any more learning. I've sworn that off. And everybody knows the stats and hears the stats, like whatever it is, 60% of people never go back into a bookstore after college. And it's frightening because if I knew, I mean, just with the stuff I know now, oh my God, like I couldn't imagine trying to operate my life without listening to, like you said, the Steve Jobs Stanford address and all these other things and the stuff I've read from and listened to from Kiyosaki and all these other people. Wow, I mean, like how different could life be? So I think being a student is, by the way, I know this is probably a different kind of a podcast for a lot of people, but this is just my story, and I think more people can benefit from that kind of stuff. So anyway.
Definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. It's, if you think besides, breathing, hearing, having your heart beat, everything else in your life you've learned to do. So
good and bad.
and there's so much knowledge out there, especially now with the internet content. But even if you can't afford to buy books, there's libraries. You can go and look this stuff up. And it amazes me. It's kind of a weird, context or weird sort of thought how I think sometimes. But I think of my brain, my mind, and I go, it's this thing in this small container, yet it's so vast. You can keep filling it and it's limitless. You can keep adding to it, and nobody can ever take away from you what you've added to it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, just learning, like when you get into subjects like this, if you're passionate about your business, there's just so much that you can learn and read and better yourself and give yourself such a jump start. And it's not just reading, watching YouTube videos, you know, that's the whole premise behind all of this stuff. So,
well, I think it's funny. Like we were evaluating different Verizon plans, and and I know I'm probably gonna make some people mad here because I have the unlimited Verizon plan still with an iPhone, and so it's funny because Verizon like reached out to us wanting to change my plan because I was using so much data. And I was like, well, how much data am I using? And they're like, well, last month you did like 50 gigs. And I go, I don't know what that means. I'm like, is that good? Is that bad? She goes, well, the average person gets a 2 to 4 gigabyte data plan. And I go, oh. And she goes, so do you want to change from this plan to this plan? I go, well, does it have unlimited data? And she's like, well, no. I'm like, then why are you trying to get me off of it? And and then I downloaded like one of their apps to see where the data is being used from, right? And it's my YouTube app, my certain podcast apps, and basically like we're talking about. It's, gosh, for every 8 hours I'm cutting lawns, besides maybe an hour here or there of Pandora music, I'm listening to 3 and 4 podcasts a day because and getting better. Because like you said, some guys are listening to, no disrespect, a DJ or some morning talk show. And, that guy is making $28,000 a year. Like you don't want to know what that guy knows. And and number 2 is that he's just selling you stuff all day long to keep his show going. And it's like, and then they talk, and then you listen to the other stuff, and it's like, just stupid talk shows and just criticizing things and talking about politics, and whether you're one way or the other, it's all irrelevant because none of it is helping you, in my opinion, grow your business. And
such a missed opportunity listening to stuff like that.
Unreal. Like the people that have the cool Work Tunes AM FM radio headsets. Mine are the $20 ones that have no technology in them, but I have an AirPods going to my iPhone, and I'm streaming all day long because, like you said, I'm treating this thing like a gift and not something that I can just pollute with at best stupid stuff. But like I said, to each their own. And then you fast forward 5 years from now, and some people are making 20 grand a year, some people are making 100 grand a year, and you know what? The writing is on the wall.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a review of my favorite Bluetooth like hearing protection headphones, like the big cans that you put on your head, right? And one of the comments I got on the video was, "Can you tell me what the FM reception is like?"
Oh God! And
I was like, couldn't tell you anything because I don't never use the FM or the AM. I just use the Bluetooth. I can tell you the Bluetooth is solid streaming podcasts. That's all I use it for, right? But the radio, couldn't tell you.
Yeah, and if you got your favorite sports team and they got a Saturday game going on, God bless you. Like I'm not, I'm a dude. I get all that, but don't forget. I always say, listen to your music after you listen to a good podcast. I even tell my employees, that the guys that work with us here and there, I'm like, look. Before you do stupid stuff, man, like educate yourself, put some good stuff into your brain, and get ahead of the curve because your competition and your peers aren't, and so I'm sure a lot of guys are like, well, this doesn't relate to lawn care, but it does,
No, it all does. And podcasts, it doesn't have to be lawn care related. There's so much. Tony Robbins just released a new podcast or launched a new podcast a week or so ago, and it's already number 1 on iTunes.
Sure.
I saw on his Instagram feed yesterday. So there's just so much information out there.
I like it.
So next question is going to go a little deep here.
Okay.
And it's share with us a time you struggled in your business and what you learned or did to overcome it.
Well, I mean, like, what experience do you want to take from that one, right? Because I have about 500 of them. So, I mean, simple stuff. Here, I guess the main one that a lot of people probably go with is whether or not I wanted to quit. I never ever thought about quitting my lawn care business. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was, it's always been a labor of love. It's never been frustrating. We've always made money. So it's like, I've had cash flow issues because I've been young and dumb with my money, buying things I didn't need, or, just like everybody else. Right. But I've never really ever been like, oh, dude, I'm quitting lawn care in this profession. Now I've had days where my second year in business was probably my hardest. And I think based on a couple of the podcasts I listened to of your guys's, a lot of people say very similar things, because a lot of folks kind of get in that awkward transition from, if they're not full-time, they want to go full-time. But to be full-time, you have to come up with a full-time income, right?
Yes.
And a lot of guys, whether you have money in the bank or not, most people don't. And my second year, like on paper, we made money. Like you said, we grossed a lot. But I didn't even like make any money per se, because I was buying new equipment and lawnmowers and a new trailer. And I had my uncle actually worked for me. He had lost his job. This is we're going back into 07, 08. So the Depression, the Great Recession, they call it, had hit US and majorly in Metro Detroit. Well, my uncle lost his job. He went from making a good job to, hey, do you want some help cutting lawns? I'll do it for like $10 an hour. And I'm like, so people were doing a lot of desperate things in Metro Detroit, just basic things. I don't want to say desperate, it's probably a wrong word, but people got humbled, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that second year, I had hired my uncle on full time, and almost every week, like, it felt like I was paying him more than I was paying me, and I was, because I had to grow the business. We needed to get new clients. So like my second year was probably my toughest year. Like I made more in gross, but I felt like I made net and took home a lot less than anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think about 3 years ago was probably my craziest year, because that's the year my wife and I were getting married, and we didn't have any help, financially from anybody on my side or her side. We just like you said, people look at you now and like, oh, you guys got things going on. Well, even 3 or 4 years ago, it wasn't always that case. Well, 3 years ago, we were paying for a wedding, and it was very typical. It cost like $20,000. It was super nice for us, and like 100 people wedding, just a very basic wedding, right? Well, that year, we had some unexplained like medical bills came in from my wife's past, which were like from 5 years previous. We had like, just transparently, we had like 1 or 2 weirdo debt collection things that we thought we had paid. And just, bizarre, like 4 or 5 bizarre things. I ended up not saving enough money for my taxes. So I owed, and it all came up to like $6,000, and $6,000 to me 3 years ago is like, $1 million today, right? Whatever, you might as well just say like, dude, we're screwed, and, and so not only did we go into the season, owing $6,000, which, I didn't have, I needed, a whole bunch of like, new tires and work and equipment needed to be maintained and fixed and upkeeps. And then I also had to come up with $20,000 in 6 months. Because if weddings, and I know not everybody's going to relate, a lot of single guys probably, listening, but if you're planning a wedding, you have to put down payments and deposits on things.
Yes.
Right? So we had to put a deposit on the venue, a deposit on the photographer. My wife had to buy a dress, paid cash in full to get it ordered, to have it come in 3 or 4 months to do the fittings, to get it. So there's schedules, right? And I have some friends getting married right now, and they're like, "This is bizarre." I'm like, "Welcome to the." I call it the hemorrhaging club, because all you're gonna do is you're gonna hemorrhage money for about 6 months. And
I'm laughing because it's bringing me back to my wedding.
Can you relate? You know what I mean? And and I didn't know what I didn't know, and so literally, I'm like, I'm $5 or $6 in the hole. I need like $2,000 to get my season started, and then I needed to come up with 20 more grand in 6 months, and I'm like, this is going to be interesting. Now that year, it's one of those things, again, it's just like the Stanford address from Steve Jobs. You have no idea how you even made it through. All you know is you approached each day one at a time, and you just did your best. And that year, somebody, I'm a big giver, and I believe if you give, you get. And I had a customer that owed me $300, and I was like, look, dude, you owed me $300 from last November. I need, cause I'm just trying to grasp for straws. I think we were doing. And so he literally was like, dude, I can't pay it. I just won't be able to. And you know what I said? You know what? I just had this whole, I don't care. I'm going to give. I'm going to give my way out of this problem. And some people think it's hokey. I get it. I thought that way 10 years ago too, but I ended up giving that guy $300. I just said, look, dude, don't worry about it. It's paid for. Call that debt paid. Literally the next week, I get a phone call from a customer who I had no clue was the treasurer of this HOA. Okay. And literally, just a long story short, we ended up getting a $300 per week cut HOA. I had the time, I had the resources, I had the energy and the manpower to cut it. It was no big deal. Total blessing. That was like $5 or $6 grand at least worth of new revenue that year. We added another guy had went out of business, and one of my clients that had that guy, or I'm sorry, one of the customers he had was like the neighbor to a lawn that I cut. She goes, hey, can you cut my lawn? My guy quit. No problem. Well, she goes, hey, why don't you call up with all of his customers and see, if they want to go with you? And I'm like, well, I don't know who his customers are, but that's a good idea. So I end up calling that dude. Hey, I know you got out of business. I don't know if you sold it or whatever. He goes, no, I'm just done. I told all my people I'm not cutting anymore. So I go, hey, I know this is kind of weird, but if you want something for it, let me know. But do you mind if I do a good job and I'm responsible and I take care of your clients? Can I take on your clients? And he goes, you know what? Absolutely. I love to give them to somebody that I know is going to do a good job. Yeah. So literally, he gives me a list of 18 to 20 people. I ended up picking up 11 or 12 of those new clients, and they were right in the same subs I was working.
Perfect.
It didn't solve every emergency instantly, but I actually had a website that another, I don't know if I'm allowed to say legally who bought it, but I squatted on a domain, and a escrow broker guy came up to me, just weirdo stuff. You know what I mean? Like I said, for those who stay consistent and diligent, they offered me $2,500 for this escrow thing, to buy this website. Looking back on it, I'm kind of mad because it's probably, honestly, no joke, probably worth $50,000. It was a major $1 billion company. I had no clue. But that $2,500 started my lawn season. And then we literally had, for the first couple of weeks, we had all the money for deposits. And literally, I had worked I think that year, I remember, I worked 42 or 45 days straight in spring, Saturdays and Sundays, cutting anything and everything. That fall, I ended up cutting another 35 days straight because we needed all the cash. And you know what? We paid the whole wedding, 20 grand in cash. 20% tip on everybody. And it was just, we got married, we had no stress. And then we got all the wedding gift money, you know how it goes. And we had money going into winter. So we had it literally went from, we owe 6 grand, we need 2 grand, we need 20 grand, to we paid everything off and everything back with cash and interest. And it was beautiful.
Awesome.
That was 3 years ago now. That was probably my toughest year, because that 3 or 4 weeks in March, April, before we started everything, it's one of those things and you hate to, draw analogies, but it was rough. It was tough. It was, what are we going to do? Do I get a second job? Do we do this even anymore? What can we do? And, things just worked out. And so that's just my story. I know everybody's going to have those stories, and a lot of people have been through those stories, but, if I could just give people encouragement, man, just one day at a time. Now, the other part of it is, the other oar in the water of just having hope is you need to work your guts out. I'm not kidding when I say I was working 8-hour days for 45 days straight. I didn't have a day off. It was insane, and I think I went from 160 pounds to, when I got my suit in, I was 155 sometime that summer. And then my final fitting for my suit, I weighed 140.3 pounds. So I had dropped 20 pounds from the stress, the workload, and the financial load. But you know what? It's all good. It all worked out, And so that was, I know some people can relate. I know some people can't. But dude, things, you have good years, you have bad years. And my second year, was horrible. We made money. I started doing some things, and then the year we got married, it was bizarre. I think there was a lot of things working against us, but we were victorious, and we ended up making it all work out, man. So it was
that's awesome.
It was good.
No, it's the reason I asked that question is because everybody has, like you say, different experiences. Some people will relate to yours. Mm-hmm. Some people won't. Some people will relate to the answer Jason gave last week, mm-hmm.
Kevin
of Fall River, Kevin the last week, or mm-hmm. Jason the week before. Mm-hmm. So it's all different. But in that Jim Rohn seminar, he talks about it too, saying that a lot of times people think that they're singled out by these disappointments in life, that these rough times in life.
Sure.
But it happens to everybody. The disappointments are different.
Yep.
But everybody has stuff they have to work through.
Absolutely.
Everybody has these problems, these issues. They're, not the exact same issues, and mm-hmm. they may vary in intensity and stuff throughout your life, mm-hmm. but it's the same for everybody, regardless of, how down and out you may think you have it.
Sure.
Maybe financially, somebody else may be dealing with, illnesses or things like that, where the load on their shoulders is just as much in a different capacity. Mm-hmm. So that's why I like that question as well, because it's, I think say people can relate to from different people's perspectives.
I totally agree. I mean, some guys, they have a health challenge or, God forbid, like a marriage problem. And, my girl's been like by my side 100%. She probably never listened to this, which is good because I'm a rube. I'm a rube, but she's never like doubted like our abilities. Yeah. And truthfully, a lot of people like you said, they listen to things for the X's and O's. But for me, like I love hearing people's heart, man. Like same thing with like Elon Musk, man. And I'm a big Tesla fan.
I see the shirt. Yeah, you're always wearing the shirts.
Yeah, I mean, like
I was thinking actually, after watching a few videos, I'm like, is that his like one of the goals is to own the Tesla?
Dude, I'm gonna. If you like him or don't like Teslas, God bless whoever, But I'm a big fan, and I like my domestics. I am in Ford, GM, Chrysler country over here, and I like my Escalades. I like my F-250s and all that jazz, but.
There's no denying what Tesla's doing,
dude. Sure, I mean, like 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds, ludicrous mode. Like, come on, folks. But same thing. Like he had with selling PayPal and this SpaceX rocket blowing up and getting a divorce all in like the same week. Yeah, and having he took his last whatever it was $20 million to keep the company afloat for 5 days before their test launch of the Model S, and literally he was in, 5 days away from being bankrupt. And, when you make $50,000 a year, that's not really that big of a deal when you're making $150 million of your own money and you're talking about billion-dollar companies, it's, and, I love movies, man. I'm a big, I don't know. I feel like I live my life through movies, but you look at things like Gladiator and the Bravehearts and the Black Hawk Downs and, is it exactly like, sometimes, you listen to stuff like this and I'm cutting lawns and I feel like I want to take my trimmer and throw it like a javelin into the woods because, I'm listening to some cool music or some cool podcast. I'm like, I just want to go crazy. And I'm like, I get what this guy is saying. And you just remember those pains, man. They just literally motivate you. And I know some people can relate. I know some people can't. I always tell people don't go out looking for stories and looking for problems, hedge against anything you can, but just know that hey, it's all good. It's all water under the bridge. I'm not going to preach to people, but it's all good. Things always seem to work out and they always will. So.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I actually just finished listening to the Elon Musk biography before Christmas.
Oh, really?
And all the things you were talking about were ringing a bell. And what you just said there about solutions and not looking for problems and stuff. And I know on my Instagram, somebody's feed popped up. It was, one of these young kids that has, like a little wagon or garden cart or something. Sure. And they had some signs they made up and put on the side, and they had a mower on it and a trimmer and blower and all this stuff. And, they just posted proudly, ready for the 2017 season.
I love it.
And I looked at it and I commented, I said, you are a true entrepreneur. Not no problems, only solutions to problems, right? Like you're a kid, you don't have a truck, you don't have a license, you want to start a lawn care business. Like, what do? Throw everything in a wagon and pull it down the street.
Amen.
And go door to door, right? An entrepreneur will find a way to get things done, not sit there and make excuses. Oh no, I can't do that because it's not going to work because of this, or it's not going to work because of this, right?
Yep. I think that's a fantastic mentality to adopt. I think a lot of people have to do it because of necessity. I know I did. The lawnmower breaks and you don't have money to fix it, you'll figure it out. You find a way. Thank God for duct tape, right?
So I want to transition now to a bit of self-promotion for you and the YouTube thing. We haven't even really touched on your whole YouTube channel. It's how I found you.
Oh, sure.
Your videos popped up on my feed, and immediately, because of the quality of them and the subtitles and the sort of the titles and stuff, I was like, well, this guy's got things together, right? He knows what he's doing. And then I was like blown away when I looked at your about, and you're not even into it a year yet. So currently looks like you're at 1,565 subscribers in less than 1 year on YouTube. That to me is like it's just crazy. It's like I'm at a rapid pace. Thanks. For 1 year. I've had my video out, but obviously it shows that when you put the work in, because my website or YouTube channel has been out for a couple years, but I only have like 9 videos on it. So it's not really, a thing. I'm still trying to get over the whole being in front of the camera thing.
Sure.
Just your videos are so polished and stuff. I really enjoy watching all of them. And seeing that you've got a really common theme, not only tips for business, but also a lot of equipment reviews. So how did that come about? The first, why do a YouTube channel and why share in the first place?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And obviously, not to be overly humble, but thank you for the kind words. It's, dude, for real. Like most people probably by now listening to me that I'm very humble and just relaxed, and I'm just like a pretty chill guy, man. Like, let's just hang out and no big deal. And I wanted to kind of bring that into YouTube, and like I said earlier, I feel like I wanted to take the last 9 or so years of experience and give back. And I got to a position where I felt comfortable because of our successes and failures that I could give back. I thoroughly enjoy doing, the review videos and the mindset videos. Of course, love trying to capture, although sometimes it's hard, all the lawn care mowing footage, But, the long story short was, I'm in a position where 10 years later and my life is, not like I'm like some old wise man, like wanting to give back, like grandpa, right? I feel like I wanted to give back to folks, and dispense, like you said, information back to people. And it was kind of funny because I did a small interview with Kevin in Fall River, who's a great dude. I love the guy. He's helped me a lot actually on the back end with my channel, giving me some tips and pointers, and forever thankful and grateful. And basically, like, I wanted to, it was kind of 2 parts. One, I wanted to give back, but number 2 was I even told this to Kevin, like, there wasn't a lot of guys from where I was doing YouTube. And number 2, there wasn't anybody reviewing the equipment that I used. I'm sure most people can observe that on YouTube, and a lot of the main guys, for whatever reason, it's a lot of, like you said, is it right standers or right mowers? A lot of Skag, obviously a lot of Gravely, and I use Exmark, and there's a couple guys that use Exmark, but and I wish they gave me $1 for every time I said Exmark, right? And same thing with Exmark and Redmax, where I live. It's 99% those brands. Like, you get a couple John Deeres, you get a couple Toros, you get a couple Hustlers, but really it's 99%. And that probably due to Weingart's, my dealer. They're huge over where we live. They only typically push the Exmarks, right? So, initially, I guess the short answer is I wanted to see other review videos of the Redmax backpack blowers and the trimmers and the edgers, the Exmark lawnmowers, because I was looking to purchase a new Exmark mower like we were talking about earlier, and nobody had, any good reviews. No, what am I trying to say? Like owner reviews. They were all corporate videos. And, just like, commercials with car companies and everybody in between, of course, they're only going to promote the good and the positive, and it's this sleek and sexy machine, and it can do all these wonders for you, right? Well, nobody was doing anything from Exmark besides Exmark. And I'm like, you'd have an occasional review video out there, but I was like, okay, well, there's obviously some room where I can do some videos and some reviews on Exmark, Redmax, and then it kind of got it was weird because I had mentioned to actually Echo had reached out to me. I literally, and people ask me how, and people are like, do you reach out to them or do companies reach out to you? And it's both, but Echo, I had about 80 subscribers or whatever they call it, right, on YouTube. And Echo had reached out to us and saying, hey, like, we know you have a new channel. You only have Redmax stuff, because a lot of my first videos were in March before I was cutting lawns. And I did a bunch of Redmax stuff. And people are like, oh, yeah. I'm sure Echo reached out to you. And I'm like, dude, transparently, like, Echo reached out to me because I only had Redmax stuff. And so I think they wanted an outside guy, brand loyal, because everybody on YouTube is Steel Echo equipment, if that makes sense. So, it's funny too, because a lot of my videos now are, I would say, better than they were a year ago. The ones from a year ago, most of them I took down because they're embarrassing. Just the way I did stuff and the way I talked, I'm like, wow, no wonder they get so many dislikes, right? And if people are like, oh, you have great videos, I'm like, yeah, sure. Like you mentioned guys like Kevin in Fall River and Jason Ambrose. I mean, Jason Ambrose was probably the first guy that I had watched his channel last February, March, and thought, dude, I can do what he's doing, and not necessarily the same brands, but with my brands, right? So he probably influenced me the most with the review side of things. I had no clue, I'll be honest, like 15 months ago, that people even did lawn care in YouTube. I got onto one thing, and I think what it was, and I remember even somebody talking about the success the guy had, but what was the guy's name? The Geek the Freak guy? I truthfully, like, when I got in, he literally got out. But at that time, a lot of his videos were like in my featured feed and just like on my main YouTube page. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, why does he keep getting promoted to me? And I guess back then he had like the most viewed channel at one point.
His channel was massive.
On all of YouTube, and it was bizarre. So I watched his channels, and then you link to a link, and you link to a link, and now you have you're watching spider videos on YouTube, right? No, but you go down the black hole, right? We've all been there. But I started watching some lawn care videos, and then I watched this guy, and then this guy, and this guy, and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know all these people exist. And it was literally right place, right time. I wanted to do, I wanted to give back. I just kind of felt like I wanted to do something different with my business this year. I started reviewing some stuff. I tried to give a couple like early videos and mindset videos. I tried to capture some lawn care footage videos, but it's just kind of, I guess, spiraled out of control lately. It's pretty crazy. I mean, I've had a blast learning the whole process of doing YouTube and videos. And I mean, I bought a camera for my wife for Christmas, actually, that winter, and basically ended up commandeering, stealing it, I guess is a nice way. Hey babe, let me borrow your nice new camera, right? Because she was going to get into vlogging, and I literally like took it from her, and that's kind of like the joke, like most guys, that's the best gift you've ever bought yourself, right? So literally I just started like doing some review videos, and it was a lot of fun, but I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to do music. I didn't know where people got music. I mean, literally zero. But the point was, I had a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about with my brands. I thought I'd be able to help a couple people. And lately, we've had, I feel like, a pretty good reception. I mean, it's the 1,500-1,600 subscribers, whatever we're at. I'm more than like you said, thankful. Like, it's bizarre. Like, that many people would watch me, you know, like
Yes.
I'm in my mind, a nobody. Like you know, I mean, like I'm thankful, but
It's mind blowing when you think about it, right?
well,
You're probably, I'm just, sort of chiming in because of what you're saying.
yeah,
I totally relate because you're like, wow, like, you sit back there and when you actually think about it, that, you have 1,565 people that thought enough of what you were doing to click a button to say, I want more.
Right.
And for, at least probably 50% of those probably are regular watchers and will watch every video. And some of them will watch, every third video or whatever, but it's just mind blowing to think that, I'm one of those people that thinks of life and every moment. Like people ask me, how are you doing today? How's it going? Whatever. When you see somebody that you see every day and they say, how's it going? Yeah. And I say, you know what? Every day I wake up is a good day.
Sure.
And so to think, in that mindset and to think of everybody, assuming that everybody feels that way, to understand that somebody's giving up their limited time on this earth to spend some of that with your content is just like,
it's beyond thankful, beyond like I almost feel like I'm shortchanging people. I'm like, I'm really not that good, like actually, if you want to watch a good channel, let me refer you to this guy, and this guy, because I half of my videos, they're I do a lot of editing, and I've tried to include some of the bloopers, lately, because I know I appreciate those. But if like the bloopers I do, like those are the ones that are clean and nice. I mean, like, I'm reviewing something and for whatever reason, like, I get mad or the camera falls or my wife gets in the car and I have the camera on and then I turn it off and she's like, what, why aren't you recording your video? I'm like, just go away. Like I'm still nervous. It's still awkward. And she's like, well, who, I'll be in the parking lot and we're at an apartment complex right now, but somebody will walk by and throw something out at the garbage and I'm in my truck for 10 minutes recording a video. And then like, they like look at me because I'm in the truck talking, but there's a camera and I'm like, look, just go away. Okay. Just go away. And then I end up like restarting the whole video. Anyway, it's so bizarre to me. Cause like, I'm sitting in the parking lot for 20 minutes. People probably think I'm like passed out or something's happening.
That's funny. That paints a good picture because I watch your videos and you have that theme of being in the truck
all the time,
right? So I thought, okay, that's his thing, right? He's in the truck. It's a nice quiet environment and stuff, right? So that's kind of funny that you're.
I call it my office. I'm like, hey babe, I'm gonna go shoot a video. I got this idea. I'll be in the office for the next 20 minutes. And she's like, you're going to your truck again? I'm like, shut up. Like we don't have an office. You know what I mean? We don't have a nice, like all these, guys mostly have garages or shops, and I'm like, we don't have that yet. I have all my stuff at, a couple different spots, but I don't have a corner. Every YouTuber has their corner. I don't have a corner. Spot, So like when people like, dream about the future, I'm like, babe, I just want a corner. I want a workshop, and, we're silly people, man. If people get to know us, we're pretty basic, but, and truthfully too, like the numbers, I don't even, I wish somebody more intelligent could explain to me the impact because, like you said, you look at it, the 1,500 subscribers is cool, but it's the almost 200,000 views. Yes. I'm like, who are the other 199,000 people? Who are these people? Like who? I mean, like, where I live, that's like a chunk of the town. I'm like, and I grew up, like in farm country almost. I'm like, who are 200,000 people? And like you said, and I think we're at like almost like 600,000 watched minutes or something. And I'm like, who wants to hear me babble for? So, I'm not playing the humble card. It's just bizarre. And, and I'm super thankful. And truthfully, like, I know a lot of guys say it like this, but I feel like we're just getting started. Like, I do have some really good videos coming up. I hope to capture a lot of lawn care footage and if anything, just keep giving back, and it's just like you said, it's kind of become its own beast, its own identity. And truthfully, like I'm just thankful and humble. And one thing I wanted to mention too was I'm really thankful for the guys that have given me encouragement along the way. Very, they might listen to the podcast, they might not, but there are guys, the Kevins, the Ambrose Landscaping, Brian from Top Notch Lawn Care, and I think his name is Johnny from Blades and Grass in Savannah, Georgia. Great guys. They directly or indirectly helped me, keep doing what I'm doing. The getting started part's easy, right, for a lot of people, but the keep doing it is the motivation. And those guys have been really nice. And to this day, besides Kevin and Fall River, like physically in a video, I think we were talking about this before we even we're starting the microphone. Like, how did you grow so fast? I'm like, dude, we haven't had, besides Kevin, a single shout out that I know of up until about a week ago. Another guy, great guy, did a shout out. He's from Florida area, but you know, it's like I wish I had the opportunity to collaborate and meet more YouTubers. And I think that also parlays to going to the GIE. I mean, last year I wasn't able to make it to the lawn show. I was going to a wedding in Rhode Island. But somebody else messaged me and goes, dude, like you were like the top of the talk of the town for a couple people. Like they wanted to see if you were coming, and I'm like,
oh, that's awesome.
I'm like, me? And this guy was like super nice. He's got a big channel. And he's like, dude, I had like 4 or 5 people ask me if you were going because you're cool with them. And I go, I'm just I'm a little guy from Michigan, you know? So it's cool. And not to, read your own press clippings, because I don't think what we've done is anything, a miracle or anything. It's just, I think more than anything, I'm just so surprised at how thankful and surprised how appreciative people have been from the content. And now it, like most things, it makes me want to keep performing and even do a better job for all those people who are watching.
Yeah. No, it's great encouragement, especially for others that want to, go out and share. You always hear and I got this, with the podcast, from the people that I have, shared that I do it and stuff. I've been open on my podcast about saying that, a lot of my family don't even know I do this podcast. I've been doing it for 2 years. Sure. And it's only because I know the response that they just don't get it. The mindset's not there. So, they'd just be, why waste your time? What's the point? Who's listening to that sort of thing? Right. And I let me tell you something. When I look at the downloads for the podcast and the countries that are listening, I'm like, that's who's listening to that. Yeah. There are 6 billion people on this planet. If you don't think that somebody else can relate to your situation, trust me, just put something out there and you'll see how many people relate with your situation. Sure. Everybody's different, and everybody's story and circumstance is valuable to somebody else. And, I think that's why it's so, these YouTube channels and things in these sort of niche markets, because, you can say, you're the only guy there in Michigan sort of doing that with that equipment and stuff, but that's exactly what somebody's looking for. Right. They're looking for a single owner operator who uses Red Max and Exmark from Michigan, because that's where they're from and the mowing conditions are the same and all that. Right. Yeah,
and you know what? It's funny too, because, and for real, I wouldn't say that this is because I'm doing it, but I've noticed, because a lot of guys comment on my stuff, hey dude, I live so and so far away, I live in this side of town, I'm over here, and I'm like, dude, so like I know 5 or 6 guys that just this last 6 months that are doing videos now at whatever level they want to participate in, but they're like, oh, I live, certain cities, and they name them, and I'm like, dude, I know right where that's that. You're 20 minutes down the road, and I'm like, there's a lawn and landscape show coming up in Michigan, and I'm like, dude, whether there's 4 people there or 40 people there, it doesn't make any difference. But I'm like, gonna do a video, and I've been doing videos on, hey, if anybody's in the Michigan area within an hour, let's meet up at this show and do like a fun meet and greet. But lately, I've seen like 6 or 7 guys I know that are doing YouTube now from Michigan, and it's really encouraging, and I think it's awesome. And not only that, I maybe it's just me, but I've had more new channels promoted to me in my what do they call it, like the features tab, on the right. Okay, yeah. I've seen more guys that I've never seen, and I mean, I've watched half of YouTube and 80% of the lawn care people on YouTube because I love it, and I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? And like great videos and great content. I'm like, dude, like keep doing it, man. This is awesome. Yeah. And I think because of my success or not, but just everybody else's, I mean, like you can tell more people are throwing into the game of doing videos. And I think it is fantastic. Like there's like a groundswell. And I think it is so cool having so many more people put out good info, reviews, just like you said, talking about their story, just helping people out. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And I think from channels like mine and maybe other people's channels, it's just so encouraging to see so many new people doing YouTube now, more and more. And it's just like, dude, where can this thing go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I've got two more questions for you to wrap up. So the first question would be, what would be your best piece of advice for those just starting out in the business? So this is somebody who's thinking about it. Maybe they have a part-time job. Maybe they're trying to make ends meet. They're thinking about lawn care. You know, could be somebody you know. What would you share with them?
That's a good question. You always have good questions, right? That's why you do what you do. You're good at this. I think, over the last year or two, I've had a couple people ask questions like that, and my answer always seems to be very similar. It's, Kevin from Fall River did on the interview I did very similar. He asked that question, and I said, if I had to narrow it down to one thing, and there's a lot of lessons in life, right? But the number one thing that's worked for me is, not being afraid to fail. Like, I know it sounds so cliche, and I know so many people like just can take that for, it not being very important. But if you think like when you were a kid, all you did was fail, like, at sports and basic stuff, and you got better. And I think the older you get, the less you want to fail, which in direct relation hurts your ability to succeed. I read a book once, and it was like, you don't become more successful by staying away from failure. You become more successful by failing more often. And I think the guy who founded IBM, he's like, if you want to double your success, double your failure rate. And people, like, they hear it, but they don't apply it to their life. Like, for me, it's physical, communicating to me physically that things are changing. I learn a lot because I'm a dude, visually and simple stuff. And like, if I'm not getting butterflies in my stomach, or if I'm not sweating, or if I'm not, to be transparent, frustrated and mad and wanting to punch a hole in the drywall, things aren't changing. They're not growing, and I think more people need to, enjoy failing. And it's, and the transparent answer is it stinks. It sucks when you fail. Because it costs you time, money, resources, relationships, right? But at the same point, you learn through those failures, and you can parlay them into bigger successes. Like, if you don't go, and I'm not giving people encouragement to do this, but if you don't go finance a piece of equipment and see what you're made of, and if you can manage it and the cash flow, you'll never know. 5 years ago, buying a 10 grand mower to me might have been a big deal. Now we just bought 22 grand worth of equipment last year, and I'm like, wow, this is actually a joke. I was so nervous, even though the numbers all added up, and my wife's like, dude, we're solid. What are you worried about? I'm like, I don't know. But then the minute we bought it, a lot of that nervousness was there. But then after a month or two, it started to go away, and now I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't do that 2 years ago. So I think a lot of people need to remember that, you try, you fail, and adjust. You have a marketing strategy with postcards, and it doesn't go your way. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you failed. Learn from it. And if you bid a contract on a subdivision and you don't get it, it doesn't mean you'll never get one. It just means you failed. So learn from that mistake. Like, as an example, there's and this is just a really relevant example, but there's a tech drive where a lot of industrial complexes are. I bid a property, and I bid it for $150, and the lady came back and almost like laughing. She goes, honey, you might want to rethink your business model. She goes, this is the last two companies we bid with were that won the bid. They got it for $80. And I'm thinking, $80? Like, oh my God, that's, obviously I failed because I bid the price twice as much as I thought it was worth, because I never had bidded that work before. But what I did is I learned that, okay, obviously that bid is not $80. So if I want to go back to that same tech drive, $80, $80, $80, $80, $80. And if I do that 10 times, I'll probably get one or two new pieces of work. But if I never bid it in the first place, I never would have got that experience to learn how to go succeed the second time. Does that make any sense?
No.
And I see people like, you know what? The older you get, the less likely people want to take risks. And I totally get that because you got obligations. So my encouragement to people is the younger you are or the smaller your business is, fail as fast as you can. I think a lot of like motivational guys and gurus and the thought leaders will say the same thing. And for me personally, it has been the same thing. So I think failing, failing is definitely the number one thing. The second thing, if I had to make one, was just have fun. Everything's going to work out. If you make a bad purchase, you can always sell it. You take a hit, no big deal. If you break a window, you learn. As long as nobody gets hurt, you're good to go. And keep the business fun. Keep like you said, like your original motivations and your reasons for why you're doing it in mind, and just learn that. You know what? In August, is it hot out? Yes. Does it stink? Yes. But just have fun, man. Break it up. And I think some people just get so serious and they're like, I gotta make money or pay off debt. And I'm like, dude, like enjoy a little bit of life too. Don't forget to look up in the summertime and realize, dude, it's a beautiful day. And if you're self-employed, like remember, like this is kind of like what your goal was. Be thankful. Yeah, you're frustrated about something's going on that day, but dude, versus 3 years ago, you were stuck in a corporate building, hating life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, no, great advice. There's actually, it reminds me of an analogy I heard once from somebody. I can't remember who said it, but they said, imagine the mother of a young baby just learning to walk for the first time. Mm-hmm. And, after 2 or 3 times, he keeps falling down and the mother says, well, you might as well give up on that.
Right. Exactly.
It's like, well, no, of course not. Exactly. You keep going until you get it right, until you learn how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a great thing. So my last question for you is a really tough one.
Oh boy.
And that's, how can people get a hold of you or follow you online?
Well, for right now, I think we were joking about this earlier because I'm not on Instagram. I'm going to put yet because after your encouragement, apparently I'm losing out on a lot of opportunity with people wanting to follow us. And to be honest with you, I'm 30. Some of these things, I hate to sound like an old fart, because I'm only 30, but I'm like, dude, I don't even know what Instagram is. I mean, I know what it is. My wife is on it, and all I see is the thumb flicking. The thumb keeps flicking. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing over there? She's like, I'm on Instagram. I don't even know what that means, and Facebook, we have a lawn maintenance, Brian's lawn maintenance page on Facebook. I don't really do too much with that. For right now, my main thing is YouTube. I think over the next 2-3 weeks, I'll probably make the investment of the time and energy to figure out Instagram and do all that. And truthfully, if it helps more people get a hold of us and see what we have going on, then that's my goal. So I'll definitely evaluate that because I do want to reach more people. And if people are receptive with it, then we'll keep up with it. But for right now, one thing,
YouTube's the main thing.
Yeah, for right now, YouTube's the main thing. And one thing I'd always give people encouragement is like, hey, if you do watch our videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button because it gives a lot of feedback and it really helps with our channel being visible. And even if you're a casual observer, I get it. If you get the email, hey, we released a new video, but you don't want to watch it, that's totally cool. But that subscriber count helps a lot with the back end of how YouTube works. I think a lot of people understand that. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you do happen to like our videos, do hit the like button. The basics. Make sure you leave a comment and maybe give me some encouragement too, because sometimes I think we were joking like, are there people out there who's watching this? And you see a video with 1,100 views, and I'm like, there's 4 comments, but who are these people? And I love getting to know people, man. I love helping people out, and so YouTube right now is pretty much the main way to go, and it's been working out pretty good. So.
All right. Awesome. I'll put a link to the YouTube channel directly in the podcast show notes. And people, like I've mentioned before, I'm an iPhone user. So if you're listening to this on Apple's iPhone podcast player, you can just click on the Lawn Care Business Success logo and it'll flip around and the link will be right there. And you can just tap it right there from the podcast player and it'll take you right to Brian's YouTube channel. So that about wraps it up. So I'd like to thank you for coming on to the Lawn Care Business Success podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, brother, I really appreciate the time too. I think we had just as much fun doing this as we did the first 15 minutes before we even started.
Yeah, they're pretty chatty.
I think we did the motivational seminar of the year before that, right? But
yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
I've never, I think we were joking too, because when you talk to an entrepreneur, it's always a fun time, and when you can even talk to somebody more in your niche with lawn care and landscaping, and I think most of us are cut from that same cloth, and it's just a really easy conversation, and to anybody who does come across any of the stuff that I put out, by all means, thanks for the encouragement, the support, the criticism, good or bad. I love hearing all of it, and it makes me a better person because of it. So, but by all means, thanks so much for putting this podcast program together. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a regular Tuesday listener now. So,
there you go.
Well done, my friend.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks again. Have a great day.
Okay, you too, brother.
Well, there you have it, Lawn Care Nation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that information-packed interview episode with Brian from Brian's Lawn Maintenance. And I really hope you guys were able to take away some of those nuggets of gold that he was dropping throughout the episode. As always, I'll put links in the show description and show notes to Brian's YouTube channel and his Instagram account. And I would encourage you all to, if you're not already subscribed to Brian's YouTube, to do that, and as well to follow him on his newly created Instagram account as well. So I think that's it for this week. And here's to wishing you guys all overwhelming success and freedom in your lawn care business. Bye for now.